who spoke at our event this past weekend for the Racial Justice Coalition. Good evening. This Saturday, I attended a Racial Justice Coalition event where I was invited to speak. During my speech, a man was taking footage of me without my consent. He escalated to pretending to masturbate to me while I was speaking. He behaved the same way to the other black women who spoke at the event. It is important to note that this is the same man who harassed the protesters at the protest, screaming white power out of his car. When the police were contacted about this second instance of harassment, they made the false claim that there was nothing that can be done. This claim is false because when there are two instances of harassment by someone you have no physical relationship with, it can be pursued as a stalking case. At the very least, they could have pursued disorderly conduct for lewd behavior in the middle of Chandler Park while children were playing. This man's lewd behavior made me feel violated, and I now feel the need to look over my shoulder while in public. I am concerned that the police have failed to act on both instances because they are sending the message that his behavior is acceptable and he can get away with harassment. The lack of consequences for his behavior further emboldens this man to harass us, and I fear that he will continue to escalate. Like most young people of color in this community, my significant other and I moved to Macomb to pursue higher education at Western. Facing this type of harassment makes us feel like we are not welcome here. This concern is validated when the police refuse to act to protect us from harassment. I submit this comment to ask the City Council what action they are willing to take when the police fail to protect vulnerable members of the community. I am looking for reassurance that people of color are welcome here and will be protected from racist harassment. I hope my concern for the safety of people of color in this community will not be ignored, invalidated, or dismissed. Are any members of the City Council willing to condemn racist harassment and use their position of power to urge the police to act? In closing, I would like to leave you all with the words of Desmond Tutu, a South African apartheid activist. If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. Thank you.
Alderman Carper.
And your notable issues, notable cases, issues, or items to discuss, I don't see anything about the contact that the Macomb Police Department has had with protesters and other gatherings. Could you give us a summary of what contact you've had?
I can. We've had basically, over the weekend, we had two incidents. One incident, a gentleman came through, drove by, yelled some obscenities. In addition to the protesters that heard that, there was another member of the community that was in the park, besides that was not protesting, heard those comments, felt disturbed by those comments, and we were able to make a traffic stop on that vehicle, and we wrote them a citation for disorderly conduct. So we did take action on that particular case. The second case that was brought up here tonight was the same individual that was in the red car that I briefed last week. We had an officer who was present at the demonstration who actually called the department. We came up, interviewed that individual, and there was some argument about what his hand gestures were doing. He says it was to get his phone to come up so that the picture would show, you know, you move your phone to get it to thing. That was what he said he was doing. So at that time, the officers did not feel that there was enough there to write him a citation for that. He said he was there not to cause any problems, just to film. So
I would hope that in the future you'll include that as a notable case, issue, or item, since it's been so important to us over the last couple of months.
Sure.
And are you continuing keeping track of planned contact with the protesters, because
Yes.
they're going on a regular basis? Are your officers are making sure that they're making contact on a regular basis and keeping track of that?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Questions or comments? Ms. McMeekan.
I'd like to thank that nice citizen who was in the park with his children and overheard that pretty typical comment that was yelled at our people. And because he called, and he's a white man, I'm glad that he did. I just wonder why so many of our protesters who called didn't receive the same level of understanding. And as far as that man this weekend, to be clear, that man was doing this to our black women. And I find it extremely frustrating that our male police officers will discount several black women relating the same thing, only to be told that there's confusion after they talk to that same man. He was there specifically to be hurtful and cruel and intimidating. And he didn't just use racist stuff, he used misogynistic, hateful stuff. And when you see those two things together in an individual who is stalking our women, that is a sign that that is a person capable of doing great harm. Now, I hope that he will be properly investigated. There is a man of his name who has been arrested several times down near, I think, Springfield and Jacksonville for impersonating a police officer in the past.
You think it's the same person?
I don't know.
Okay.
We looked at the Facebook profile, but we couldn't find a red truck, and we couldn't find a picture of him on that one. It is the same name, and the behavior is consistent with some of the ways that he has responded. From now on, we just are wondering, why is it several black women relating that they saw this, and we women know the difference between a camera flip and a jerk-off motion, to be clear. So to be told we don't know the difference, or our women to be told that, is really insulting. Why are they told when they want to file a complaint, well, it's your word against his, so I guess we're not going to do anything? Why can't they just take the complaint and let our women fight it out in court with these people?
Let's have the chief respond to that.
The first incident for the guy that yelled at the park, it was not a male complainant, that was a female complainant that overheard that. Yeah, so it was not a white male that made the complaint and then we took it and ran with it because it was a white male and we were taking it over. No, it was a female that made the complaint. When you are out protesting and somebody responds to you and they counter protest, the level that we need to get a conviction in court rises. There is a big difference between disorderly conduct, going in and doing something in, say, a daycare with little kids, than doing it in a park with people that are holding signs and protesting. I know you don't believe that, but there is a level that it'd be like going, you've seen all the protests in Portland and everywhere else. If that was the case, both sides should be arrested. But when people are out exercising their constitutional right, you have to give them some space to be able to do that. Okay? So it takes a little bit more than just us, them doing something to you and then you disagreeing with it and then us going to make an arrest. In that first case, where somebody who was not participating in your protest overheard that and was alarmed and disturbed by it, that raised to that level. Because they weren't a protester and they were offended by it, because that's not common. But in a protest situation, you're going to have people that disagree. They're going to say rude things to each other, and they don't rise to the level of probable cause to make an arrest. I'm sorry, they just don't.
Alderman Carper.
I find myself in the curious position of agreeing with Ms. McMeekan on this. I agree with you that the person yelling the insulting and hateful words can't be prosecuted, but it sounds to me like there's a completely different issue here of a man standing there making lewd gestures.
Right.
Several women saw it directly. We aren't dealing with hearsay here. And for the police to say, oh, well, the guy said he wasn't doing it.
Well, it was more than that.
Chief, we know when people are making that particular gesture to us.
Oh,
And I would hope that you would do more and instruct your officers to do more than to say, oh, I guess he was moving his phone around for some purpose.
Well, that's what he said. Okay,
Right,
but we
but
had
you had
an
several people
officer.
who said the other thing.
We had an officer on scene who sympathizes with their cause and who is a participant in their cause, and he felt the same way. He did not feel that there was probable cause there to make an arrest. He called so that we could come and make sure that we were there, but had he felt that there was more, we probably would have made an arrest just based off of that, because he's a police officer. He's obviously can see what's there. That would have raised that level. He was there. But we know who this individual is, and hopefully we will not have any more incidents. But if he does come back, you should be alarmed. You should call us and let us come talk to him again. And hopefully by our presence being there, he will not escalate. Hopefully he'll just stand there and film like everybody else and be a counter protester. But by all means, do call. Yes.
Ms. McMeekan.
Our pop-up event at Chandler Park this Saturday was not a protest. It was an educational event with speakers and their families with them. It was a peaceful event. And last week, we had to listen to people tell us if we just moved to the park, it'd be fine. I think we've kind of put that to rest. I would like us to make a distinction between counter-protesting, which we have no problem with. I have no problem getting cursed out, right? Stalking is a different matter. Harassing, threatening, and intimidating when white people regularly use their vehicles to try to suppress other people from speaking up about racial justice, and they use racist language and hate language. Why is none of that able to be raised to the level of investigating it at least as a possible hate crime, but also allowing, why is it that it took an officer being there? And to be clear, I want to clarify a statement. He is not a part of our protest. None of your officers are any of our members. We appreciate Officer Hamer. He has been a decent and unfailingly kind and an excellent officer, and we have no problems with him. But let's draw a distinction. Why does it take a white male officer to raise the level of that, and why can't our black women just be believed that they felt insulted, intimidated, unwelcome, and now they're living in fear? The next day, I waited 24 hours because I was emceeing the event, and I waited for everybody to get back to me on what they witnessed. And our women are hurting. They were recommended that since nothing can be done, they could each go for an order of protection. Is that really the message we want to send to our black women here? That if someone's going to repeatedly treat you hatefully, the police can't take your word, but if a white male officer sees it, they can elevate that. That says what you witness and experience doesn't matter. It says it doesn't carry the same weight as a white male officer to be disturbed, even though they're the target of it and they don't have a gun and they don't have a vest and they don't have protection in this community. I can't even tell you how frustrating it is. We've been working at this for like 2 years just to finally have an event where nobody gets mistreated, and we can't accomplish that here. I can't take my student groups places. I can't even have an event in the park and have our black women be invited to speak without them being treated in degrading, disgusting ways. And then the next day when I talked to the officer I talked to, and he's fine too, he's been a great guy, but he did say, well, I got to tell you, that complaint about him making lewd gestures, that was debunked. No, that was not debunked. And anyone saying it is, if the officers claimed it was, then they minimize the behavior and the impact of it. And that's what we're talking about here. The impact of that man's behavior is to silence dissent, to make black people live in fear, to make them leave our park. Some of our oldest black community members were made to feel unwelcome and unsafe at our Black Lives Matter event that I invited them to. I take that extremely personally because I assured them that we would try our best to make them feel welcome and safe. And instead, a bunch of them had to leave feeling mistreated, re-traumatized, and the subject of more racist harassment. That is not counter-protest. That is very different, and I really need this community to know the difference. We need our leaders and our police department to reach out to other departments that have no problem investigating these things as possible hate crimes. And I'm sorry to be so angry, but I'm responsible for all those people now having to figure out how to help them feel safe, and all of them are traumatized from this. We need an expression of you, from you, of sorrow and disgust. I mean, an honest show of compassion for these women who, once again, you tell us to call the police. They called the police. They were told what they witnessed. Well, you know, it might have just been a camera flip. Really? Men should never say that to us women, ever, around here, because we all put up with that stuff all over the place, all right? The invalidation is one issue. The equating it falsely with counter-protest is another that is not accurate at all. It's threatening language. It's harmful. Are we going to have to wait till this guy hurts one of them? Really? That's the message that they received. So please do more. And please never equate hateful behavior with protests. It's not the same thing.
Thank you, Ms. McMeekan. Chief, we'll expect a different response next time. Okay. More thorough investigation. Anyone else?